Hey guys, so now I believe we're in the 7th part of the Sengoku Jidai series by Kings and Generals. The original video you can find the link to in the description down below, and if you enjoy my content and you want to help out my channel in any way, shape, or form, feel free to please like, comment, subscribe, and maybe consider being like a Patreon YouTube member. It'd really help me out a lot. Now with that said, and now without any further ado, let's get to it, shall we? Let us watch more of Sengoku Jidai by Kings and Generals.
Following his victory at Shizuka Take, Hideyoshi returned to Osaka to oversee the final touches upon his magnificent new residence. With this new castle completed, Hideyoshi extended invitations to various high-ranking samurai generals and lords, like Chosokabe Motochika, Kobayakawa Takakage, and the late dictator's son Oda Nobukatsu, to visit him. These, however, were not merely friendly social calls. At first glance, Hideyoshi's invitations looked like a nice, friendly move to celebrate a great victory, but it was nothing less than Hideyoshi asking for homage.
Ooh.
In the case of Nobukatsu,
yes, it kinda is a power move if you think about it. Like, he builds this magnificent new castle, he's just won a war, has a large part of Japan under his banner, and then just like, oh, all of you come here and look at my magnificence. It is kind of a power move when you think about it.
It also meant the reversal of the master-vassal relationship between them. The Oda Lord would have to pledge allegiance to his former Ashigaru, an idea that Nobukatsu could not entertain in the slightest. Nobukatsu naturally declined the invitation, which led to the two men falling out. Seeking to alienate Nobukatsu from his closest supporters, Hideyoshi extended grace to three of Nobukatsu's chief retainers, Sugawa Yoshifuyu, Okada Shigitaka, and Azai Nagatoki. However, Nobukatsu caught wind of the relations between the three men and Hideyoshi, and promptly had them recalled to his castle and executed.
Oh my gosh.
Suspicious of his longtime allies, and lacking the strength to confront Hideyoshi alone, the Oda Lord then turned to Tokugawa Ieyasu for help. Ieyasu, who had been a cautious man all his life, knew that facing Hideyoshi was madness. Still, Nobukatsu's plea presented a perfect excuse for war with Hideyoshi, and if he played his cards right, he could become the absolute authority in the...
It's true, like, high risk, high reward. It's a gamble, because Ieyasu definitely has been playing nice with this clan. You know, kind of like, oh, we're allies, and then let me help you, and let me call for help when I have problems. So this is gonna be a completely different, like, strategy on his part if he decides to just, I'm going to war with you now. It's gonna be very dramatically different than what he usually does, which is kind of like, you know, I'm your ally, I'm gonna be on the sidelines, don't notice me. It's almost easy to kind of like distance himself, but now he would actually have to get involved, and again, like, this is definitely high risk and high reward. He has a lot to gain, but he also has a lot to lose, and I don't think he'd be able to pull out as easily if he went into war. So dang, that's rough. I feel like he's gonna take the offer. It seems like priming that he's gonna do it. Him and Hideyoshi are both incredibly cunning and competent, but I feel like, like, I'm just wondering who would win. I don't know. Part of me is kind of like leaning towards Hideyoshi, but again, like, I feel like at this point it's a top toss-up. They're both incredibly competent. Okay, like I said, this will be a Clash of the Titans if this goes. You know what I mean? I'm really interested in seeing who's gonna like prove to be the better.
land. Hideyoshi tried in vain to bribe Ieyasu by offering lordship over the provinces of Mino and Owari, but the Tokugawa daimyo declined. All-out war between the two men was now inevitable.
Oh boy. The die is cast!
Ieyasu moved quickly, trying to bring to his camp those former retainers of Nobunaga who now stood on the fence. He called for Sasa Narimasa of Echu province to attack Hideyoshi's steadfast ally and one of the four Karo, Niwa Nagahide, who governed Kaga and Echizen provinces. He also invited Chosokabe Motochika, ruler of all Shikoku, to hit Hideyoshi from across the sea in his exposed soft underbelly.
Dude, this is me when I'm playing Total War. I'm going to war with someone. I immediately try to get everyone in other places, like other areas, to join war, like attack on different fronts. Sometimes I have achieved success, though in my most recent playthrough I haven't. I was playing as Macedon, right? I had conquered Greece, and then I was deciding I was gonna go east, starting with Anatolia and whatnot. And Pergamon was in the way, so I declare war on Pergamon. Little did I know that Pergamon had like a bunch of allies all in Anatolia and Egypt. So Egypt was also an ally of mine, so I was hoping Egypt would join me, but no, Egypt immediately turned on me, and so I ended up at war with not only Pergamon, but like 4 other different factions. And, oh boy, that's like the time it backfired on me. Though, like, I managed to, I'm still at that campaign right now, so I can't say how it's gonna end, but I was actually holding my own, and mainly because I managed to play a very great defensive game that none of them could actually take or even step that far into my land. Again, the power of the pike, bro. Like, I'm such a big pike lover. But either way, yeah, I kind of like what Ieyasu's doing. It's kind of what I do when I'm trying to bribe other people to join my war with me. Though I don't think it's bribery, but I use bribery. Like, here, have this much money to help me, you know?
Finally, he asked various warrior monk sects to lend him their strength. Nobukatsu, meanwhile, reached out to Ikeda Tsuneyoki, the other Karo, whose family had served the Oda clan for generations, even releasing Tsuneyoki's hostage son as a sign of good faith. However, Tsuneyoki owed a great deal to Hideyoshi, and was thus conflicted as to which side to pick. When a messenger from Osaka arrived, bearing the words of Hideyoshi that promised to make Tsuneyoki the lord of Mino and Owari, the latter wholeheartedly threw his lot in with the Toyotomi.
Ooh.
Furthermore, Hideyoshi secured the support of Uesugi Kagekatsu, whose position threatened the rear of Ieyasu's ally Sasa Narimasa should he make a move. Others that stood behind Toyotomi's Golden Gourd banner were various lords of Ise and Iga provinces, Bizen, Mimisaka, and Tango.
Oh my goodness.
In Ise and Owari, Nobukatsu had made the first moves by securing the castles of the retainers he had executed and then capturing Kamiyama on the 22nd of April. The very next day, Hideyoshi's generals tried in vain to reclaim it by launching a frontal assault, so they settled in for a siege while at the same time attacking Mine Castle, which would fall just 2 days later. Meanwhile, Ieyasu's forces marched from Mikawa to meet up with Nobukatsu's forces in Kyosu Castle on the 23rd. However, Hideyoshi's allies in the area had already made a move as Ikeda Tsuneyoki captured the nearby castle of Inuyama. Inuyama nominally belonged to Nobukatsu and was governed by Nakagawa Sadanari, who had chosen a really bad time to be absent at Ise. Taking advantage of Sadanari's absence, Tsuneyoki's men marched from Okaki Castle and laid a brief siege at Inuyama. Tsuneyoki, who had served as castellan of the place during Nobunaga's time, was familiar with the castle's defenses. Moreover, when some of the defenders recognized their old commander, they assisted him in breaching the castle walls and capturing the main keep.
Oh, not a good start. Dang, that's not a good start for them. But you know, like I don't know why. I have a feeling that Hideyoshi's gonna win. Like that's just like my feeling. I feel like on the battlefield, I mean, him and Ieyasu both have been incredibly impressive, though. I mean, just because we've been following Hideyoshi a bit more as of late. Like, he's definitely... I've seen a lot of his siegecraft, you know, more prowess on the battlefield, and fighting myself a bit slightly more impressed by him. Though it's not, like, dramatic, but you know what I mean. Again, it's too early to tell, and I probably will rule this, maybe, but I just have a feeling, like, Hideyoshi, like, my heart is leaning more towards his camp winning, but, I don't know, I don't wanna count out Ieyasu, bro, like, he's also pretty good, so, I guess we'll see.
Following the capture of Inuyama, Mori Nagiyoshi moved towards Hoguru Castle with 3,000 men. He was a well-connected commander, being Tsuneyoki's son-in-law, a brother to Ranmaru, and having served as Nobunaga's page during the events of Honnoji. However, Ieyasu was prepared for him.
Ooh.
Having anticipated such a movement, the Tokugawa lord had already left Kyosu. He set up camp at Koyakiyama. a hill that would grant him a significant tactical advantage in the coming battle. At dawn, Ieyasu's generals, Matsudaira Ietada and Okudaira Nobumasa, launched an attack.
Okay. So I will say though, it seems like this is another battle. Pretty even in composition, but again, that cavalry contingent though, that's dangerous. Since I don't see any cavalry on this side, I'm willing to lean towards, you know, the one with cavalry pulling off the W.
At Nagayoshi's headquarters at Hachimanbayashi, with heavy arquebus fire being exchanged between the two sides before the melee clash. At the same time, after being granted permission by his overlord, Sakai Tadatsugu made a wide flanking maneuver and attacked Nagayoshi's forces.
The flank. The oldest trick in the book. I'm telling you, bro, that's the thing. Like, fighting without cavalry against an enemy that does have cavalry, it's just madness to me. And it's because of this. Like, I also noticed that when I'm like playing Total War, like, you need to keep your cavalry contingent on the side because like the AI will definitely try to outflank you. That's why like you need reserves, and like I always try to go into battles with at least more cavalry because again, there's so much you can do with cavalry, like flanks, attacks. Winning the cavalry battles just essentially makes the rest of the battle look incredibly easy. So just like this is a great example of that, you know?
In the rear, inflicting terrible losses. However, the Mori general managed to break through the encirclement and escape. An attempt to change the outcome from Sunioki was made by dispatching reinforcements to Hogaru. But Ieyasu met those troops by relocating his own. The leader of the Ikeda regiment, Inaba Itetsu, preferred to avoid combat and didn't commit, so Ieyasu also pulled back to reinforce and fortify his position at Komikiyama. Ieyasu's men began repairing the half-destroyed castle that was built during Nobunaga's time, as well as the nearby Hira and Kobata castles. They also dug trenches and other earthworks and constructed a long palisade wall that stretched about half a mile from Komikiyama to Hachimanzuka. While Ieyasu was building up his defenses at Komikiyama, Toyotomi Hideyoshi decided to personally enter the stage, leaving Sakamoto Castle for Gifu with 25,000 men, before proceeding on to Inuyama, which he reached on the 7th of May. There, Hideyoshi was educated on the tactical situation on the front, which he later assessed for himself by overlooking Ieyasu's fortifications from some hills. Despite the Toyotomi alliance having a massive numerical advantage over Ieyasu, as the combined strength of their armies more than doubled that of the Tokugawa camp, Hideyoshi decided that the Tokugawa defenses were too strong to risk a direct assault, and opted to build his own line of fortifications linking 3 forts with a rampart that stretched over 2 kilometers long and 4 meters high. He then set up his headquarters at Gekiden and waited for Ieyasu to make a move. But on the other side of the 2 fence lines, the Tokugawa lord had the same idea and was waiting for Hideyoshi to come at him, knowing
Dang. Great minds think alike. These guys are 2 sides of the same coin. Truly worthy rivals, you know what I mean? And, you know, like, just, like I said, like, this is why I've been really hyped. Like, I like I said, it's so cool that the 2 people that I immediately took notice of in this series are facing off against each other. This is amazing. I'm, like, so happy about all this. But, yeah, that's the thing. It's kind of settling into a stalemate now, huh? Because obviously Hideyoshi knows he can't attack. The defenses are too good, regardless of his numerical superiority. And I also think is not an, well, obviously I know he's not an idiot, so he's not gonna just charge at them. So yeah, it's like if they get into like a stalemate of just constantly fortifying and neither attacking, then I don't know what the heck could. Yeah, there'd have to be like a third factor to break the stalemate. You know what I mean? So dang, man.
defender would enjoy a significant advantage in the upcoming battle. and so the two sides waited for each other, with neither army emerging to challenge the other. This continued until, seemingly out of boredom, Ikeda Tsuneyoki suggested raiding Mikawa province, the home province of the Tokugawa clan, to force Ieyasu to abandon his fortified position.
Oh.
Even if Ieyasu didn't leave Komiyakama entirely, he would surely have to send part of his army back to Mikawa, thus weakening his defenses substantially enough for Hideyoshi to attempt to overwhelm them with a frontal assault. Hideyoshi gave his permission. Thus, Ikeda Tsuneyoki.
Oh, wow. And again, it does help that numerical superiority idea, right? Like, Hideyoshi has such overwhelming Well, I'm not sure. Yeah, it seems like he has way more than Ieyasu, for sure, as explained earlier, so, you know, he can kind of maybe afford more to, like, send parts of his army to do this raiding, while Ieyasu seems like if he breaks even a small part of himself, it won't help, so, dang. Good suggestion there.
Embarked with his son-in-law, Mori Nagayoshi, as well as Hori Hidemasa and Hideyoshi's nephew, Miyoshi Hidesugu. Under cover of darkness, and with around 20,000 men under their combined command, they left the Toyotomi camp on the 15th of May, and after crossing the Shonai and Yada rivers, they arrived at the area of Nagakute 3 days later, where they came face to face with their first obstacle, the castle of Iwasaki. The castle was commanded by Niwa Ujishige, who had no more than 240 men to garrison its defenses, and could not hope to resist the enemy force. Yet Ujishige would not go down without a fight, hoping to at least delay the Toyotomi forces enough for a messenger to reach Ieyasu and warn him of the invading force that had penetrated so deep into his defensive lines. Despite Ujishige's valiant efforts, Tsuneyoki's raiding force achieved a quick victory and continued on. However, the sounds of the battle alarmed the local peasants, who hurried to inform Lord Tokugawa. While Ieyasu was at first reluctant to believe the words of the farmers, reports of his own scout that confirmed Tsuneyoki's flanking maneuver convinced him to take action. Thus, Ieyasu left Sakai Tadatsugu, Ishikawa Kazumasa, and Honda Tadakatsu with 5,000 men at Komaki to deter any move on Hideyoshi's part. Ieyasu himself took 11,000 men, including Sakakibara Yasumasa, Ii Naomasa, and Oda Nobukatsu, and made his way to Kashiwai.
This seems like exactly what Hideyoshi wants, though. Like, if Ieyasu just leaves, then Hideyoshi could make his move. Like, yeah, I don't... It seems like Ieyasu's falling right for the ploy, right?
Ahead of the main force marched his uncle, Mizuno Tadashige, at the head of the vanguard consisting of around 4,500 soldiers, with orders to hold down the enemy if they engaged in battle or to pursue them further into Mikawa. After reaching Kobata, Tadashige continued to attack Hidetsugu's rear, while Yasumasa followed a different route, essentially forming a pincer move that not only enveloped Hidetsugu's forces, but also caught them completely by surprise while the soldiers were taking their breakfast. Miyoshi's forces were routed from the battlefield, with Hideyoshi's nephew himself barely managing to escape the ensuing onslaught. The sound of the battle alarmed Hori Hidemasa's nearby troops upon the arrival of the Tokugawa armies. Hidemasa rallied his 3,000 men to come to Hidetsugu's rescue, but it was already too late. Therefore, he chose to position his regiment on a hill that overlooked the Kanare River near the village of Nagakute. There he prepared for the oncoming Tokugawa forces, offering 100 koku to any man who would shoot down a cavalryman. Soon enough, Sakakibara's troops came marching towards them, fresh from their victory over Miyoshi's division. They confidently attacked Hidemasa's position, but they were met with a devastating hailstorm of arrows and arquebus fire that broke their charge. The Hori forces then counterattacked and completely broke the morale of Sakakibara's men, who fell back and only recovered when they saw Ieyasu's own golden fan banner approaching. But Ieyasu wasn't the only one joining the battle. By that time, news of their detection by their enemy had reached the ears of Ikeda Tsuneyoki and Mori Nagayoshi, who turned around their divisions to join Hori Hidemasa's forces at Nagakute. Tsuneyoki's two sons, Terimasa and Motosuke, positioned their forces on the right wing, with their father...
Dang, this seems like it's gonna be a really big battle, holy crap. Again, definitely... I'll say Ayasu's side definitely has the more cavalry. I like how every battle that's so far in this series has been like, who has the most cavalry? I think they're gonna win, and I've kind of been right, at least in that regard. But you know, like I'm just kind of wondering. Sure, they have numerical superiority, but I've seen numerical superiority be negated so much in the history of this channel that I almost don't even consider it that much of an advantage. Not to say it isn't, but like, guys, I swear we've seen more battles where numerically superior forces lost and have won. It's kind of insane when you really think about it. Like, that's why a part of me is like, yeah, definitely it is an advantage, but I don't even think, but I think under like a really great commander, that advantage can quickly be negated. You feel me? So, I don't know. I guess we'll see. I mean, I think Ieyasu definitely has proven himself really great, and if Hideyoshi's not fully there, I'm willing to lean towards Ieyasu pulling off a W. But then again, Hideyoshi is still in his defenses, and he might just attack the defenses that Ieyasu has left. So even if Ieyasu wins or manages to rout this force, he ultimately fell for the overall bigger plan, which was to lure him away. So yeah. Very, very interesting.
Staying behind in the reserve, while Negiyoshi secured the left flank. Opposite him, on the right wing of his own line, stood Tokugawa Ieyasu himself, while Ii Naomasa and his Red Demons were guarding the left flank, and Oda Nobukatsu remained in the reserves. The battle started with the arquebusiers of both sides exchanging heavy fire, which inflicted significant casualties on Ikeda's men, and prompted his sons on the right flank to launch a head-on attack against Naomasa's men. However, the Red Demons proved more than a match for them, and were able to repel several assaults even when they were reinforced with forces drawn from Ikeda's center.
Oh, dang.
Are you struggling?
Seeing the center of Ikeda's
Dang, these Red Demons are on demon time.
formation weakening, Ieyasu, who by that point had not yet moved, advanced on Nagiyoshi's troops from the right flank. The two forces clashed fiercely, and in the ensuing combat, Nagiyoshi lost his life to one of Tokugawa's arquebusiers, who was able to spot him due to his distinct armor. With Ikeda's left wing firmly tied by Ieyasu's own men, Nobukatsu, who was still sitting in the reserve, made a wide flanking maneuver and fell upon Tsunioki's regiment.
The flank, the oldest trick in the book. But, again, yeah, just... wow, okay.
In the frenzied melee, the Ikeda daimyo followed his son-in-law to the grave by the hands of a samurai named Negai Denpachiro.
Oh, wow.
His death caused a massive loss of morale to his troops, who began routing en masse. In the slaughter that followed, Tsunioki's eldest son, Motosuke, also perished.
Wow.
Soon enough, news of the battle reached Hideyoshi's ears at Inuyama, and he made haste with a large host to reinforce his generals at Negakute. Seeing the Toyotomi's defenses weaken from their own fortifications at Komaki, Ieyasu's generals held a gathering, but could not agree on a common course of action. Sakai Tadetsugu supported a direct attack on the Toyotomi positions, which Ishikawa Kazumasa vehemently opposed. At the same time, Honda Tadekatsu refused to sit idle. Leaping into action, he gathered a regiment of around 1,000 samurai and set off to attack Hideyoshi's rear. He was, however, unable to find an opening, and luckily for him, Hideyoshi preferred to continue marching instead of engaging Tadekatsu's force. Even so, the Toyotomi reinforcements arrived at Kobata too late to change the outcome of the battle, and Ieyasu was already safe inside the castle. Another stalemate like the one at Komaki played out, with both sides staring.
Wow, all that, just to end up in a stalemate. But I think Ieyasu definitely is in the more favorable position now, because he managed to inflict damage upon Hideyoshi's side and get rid of a few of his commanders. So I'd say right now the ball is in, Ieyasu's court. I think is this how the saying goes. But he seems to be in the more favorable position now than he was before.
menacingly at each other behind their respective palisades. After 3 weeks, Hideyoshi finally lost his patience and withdrew completely, leaving only a small garrison force around Inuyama Castle. Ieyasu too, despite having achieved a victory on the battlefield, decided to return to Okazaki. However, the absence of the Tokugawa soldiers from the front lines gave Hideyoshi essentially a blank check to do as he pleased with the other member of the Oda Tokugawa alliance, Nobukatsu.
Oh, dang.
Thus, the Toyotomi armies went on the offensive, immediately besieging and capturing Kaganoi Castle to the northwest.
Oh yeah, Ieyasu pulling out, that's not good. He's like the only one who's keeping him in check. Oh, that's not a good move.
West of Kyosu. Following that, Hideyoshi attacked the castle at Takegehana, which he captured after a month-long siege, during which he diverted the flow of the Kiso River in a move that echoed his previous triumph at Takematsu. Oku was next in line, and after that, Hideyoshi proceeded to return back to his home in Osaka, leaving behind his generals to continue their attacks on Nobukatsu's strongholds, who was safe inside his headquarters at Nagashima, but also unable to stop the rampaging Toyotomi troops. The epilogue to the campaign came when Hideyoshi's general, Takigawa Kazumetsu, successfully convinced his cousin, Maeda Tanetoshi, to surrender the castle of Kanie, which lay halfway between Kyosu and Nagashima, and posed a substantial threat to Nobukatsu's position. The fall of Kanie also led to the capture of the nearby and smaller Taba Castle. Kazumatsu's spree continued with the attempted conquest of Ono, but this was unsuccessful. Wary of the threat the Toyotomi forces posed, Nobukatsu appealed for help to Ieyasu, who dispatched Sakakibara Yasumasa to relieve his ailing ally. Kanie and the surrounding castles soon came under siege by the combined Tokugawa and Oda forces, which were led by Nobukatsu's uncle Oda Negamatsu. On the 23rd of June, after an exhausting siege, Kazumatsu was able to strike a deal with the besiegers, who agreed to let the garrison go unharmed in exchange for his cousin's head. And so poor Tanetoshi paid the price for betraying his lord.
Dang.
And with his head, Kanie returned to Oda control. This was the final action of the Kamaki Nagakute campaign, as Hideyoshi, upon seeing the reversal of the situation on the field, resorted to diplomacy. As castles and lands changed hands, and as each side exchanged hostages, an uneasy peace was concluded. Ieyasu had prevailed on the battlefield, and on the tactical level he was victorious. Yet his wins had not been translated into gaining him anything on the strategic level. If anything...
Dang. That's what I was wondering. Unfortunately, they didn't have a full pitch battle against one another, but yeah, in a tactical sense, Ieyasu won the more impressive, battle, and managed to inflict a lot of casualties and even kill a few commanders, which is, again, amazing on his part. But I guess that's the whole thing with tactics and strategy, right? Like, winning battles, but winning the war. Hideyoshi's definitely good at diplomacy, though. He can play, like, the politic game, and I kind of like that he resorts to that when the battlefield isn't always going his way. He'll be like, alright, time to pull out the diplomacy thing. Being able to do both is actually amazing, and I feel like definitely gives him you get a sense that he's much more well-rounded in terms of his skill set, So, yeah, I also probably isn't going to have a dramatic gain. As I mentioned before, this was a high-risk, high-reward situation. He took the risk, but to not yield any major reward must not sit well with him.
Hideyoshi had emerged more powerful as his hegemony continued to solidify, and with Ieyasu out of the picture, he was now free to pursue other goals and further conquests, such as the destruction of the Iko-Iki at Nigoriji, the pacification of Sasanarimasa in Echu, and the subjugation of Shikoku and Kyushu Islands.
Dang.
In the following year, Hideyoshi...
Yeah, so in a way, Hideyoshi kind of came out on top, because he didn't lose as much. So dang, like, yeah, I guess that's the whole thing with tactics and strategy. Like, I've heard some people debate this, but like, I kind of, when I think of tactics and strategy, I think like, tactics is winning battles, strategy is winning the war, and in a strategic sense, yeah, Hideyoshi didn't really suffer like, any like major territorial change. His power and grip over everything didn't really loosen, so Yeah, like, and he's just gonna go on and keep doing what he needs to do, so...
He used his advantageous position to firmly establish himself as the hegemon of Japan. With no one left in the Oda camp to challenge his authority, he soon reversed the vassal-master relationship that had thus far existed between the Hashiba and the Oda clans by granting a few fiefs of land to Oda Nobukatsu and Shamboshi. Wasting little time, his armies soon took to the field again, and in the spring of 1585, Hideyoshi's troops marched against the warrior monks of the Saike-iki of Ki province, who had fortified themselves at Nogoroji. The Sohei were skilled warriors, especially those of the
Sohei were Buddhist warrior monks of both classical and feudal Japan. At certain points in history, they held considerable power, obliging the imperial and military governments to collaborate. The warriors protected land and intimidated rival schools of Buddhism.
Saige-iki, who had a long tradition of manufacturing firearms and had been among those who supplied guns to Ishiyama Hongenji. In short, they were not an enemy to be trifled with. Moving into Izumi province, Hideyoshi's forces faced their first obstacles, a series of castles, namely Sawa, Shakuzen, Hatanaka, and Sengoku Bori, which were defended by roughly 9,000 men. Sengoku Bori in particular, which laid on the easternmost flank of the line, would prove a tough nut to crack. On the 21st of March, the castle's defenders sallied out, under the leadership of Otani Sadahito, and attacked the Toyotomi forces who were under the overall command of Hideyoshi's nephew, Toyotomi Hidetsugu. Catching them completely by surprise, they managed to inflict a great number of casualties before retreating back inside the castle to fend off the Toyotomi counterattack by the skillful use of firearms and bows. The fighting prowess of Sengoku Bori's 1,500 defenders cannot be overstated, and perhaps they could have defeated the Toyotomi host had not tragedy struck. As the battle around the castle was raging on, a fire arrow, shot by Tsutsui Sadatsugu's archers, managed to strike the gunpowder magazine, igniting it and causing a massive explosion which led to the castle's surrender.
Oh,
Hideyoshi's
dang.
soldiers spared none of the defenders, not even the animals, and burned the fortress to the ground. After the fall of Sengoku Bori, the rest of the other outposts followed suit. That same night, the defenders of Hatanaka abandoned their castle and withdrew after putting their castle to the torch. On the same evening, fights began around Shakuzenji and Sawa castles. Just as in Sengoku Bori, their defenders offered stiff resistance with guns and bows. Yet, facing the overwhelming numerical superiority of the Toyotomi forces, they were ultimately forced to surrender the day after. Having captured the 4 outposts in Izumi province, Hideyoshi's army moved into Ki and laid siege to Nogoroji. The temple complex had been mostly abandoned by that point, and despite any resistance the remaining defenders put up, the temple fell to Hideyoshi's men after just a 2-day siege. In a move reminiscent of Nobunaga's burning of Mount Hiei and in Ryakuji, Hideyoshi had Nogoroji put to the torch. However, different sources give alternative explanations to the fire that engulfed the temple, attributing it to its defenders or some negligent soldiers. In any case, Hideyoshi would bring fire upon his enemies as he invaded the Saige-iki's lands, while burning villages and temples as he went. In the process, he destroyed the confederation that in the past had defied even Nobunaga. Despite Hideyoshi's overwhelming force, remnants of the Saige-iki continued to resist in various places, with their most important bastion and stage of the ultimate showdown being Ota Castle, seat of Ota Sakon. While the location of the castle and its construction rendered any attack by fire ineffective, they offered a great opportunity for another of Hideyoshi's signature moves, flooding.
Yes, this guy loves his flooding, and honestly, I don't blame him. It's such a useful tactic, and a really, like, interesting, cool one. Like, his siegecraft has so far been the best of this entire series, like, you know what I mean? So, again, like, when it comes to sieges, I'm almost like, yeah, Hideyoshi's got this. Like, I'm not worried at a bit. I'm not even, like, a little bit worried that he'll fail. I mean, maybe right now things could change, but, I feel like he's just too good at it, bro.
Having surrounded the Ota on all sides, Hideyoshi ordered Norizane Akeshi to construct a dike and a dam on the nearby Kinukawa River to alter its course and flood the castle. The construction of the embankment proved rather difficult, as it was twice destroyed, with the second incident leading to the death of many Toyotomi troops. Overcoming these setbacks, Hideyoshi continued the siege, and as the water continued to rise and their supplies diminished, the defenders of Ota, after resisting for more than 20 days, finally surrendered. Hideyoshi would show no mercy. Those of samurai status were put to the sword, some even crucified, while many preferred to take their own lives to escape Hideyoshi's wrath.
My husband used to.
Interestingly enough, his vengeance was not extended to the common foot soldiers and the peasants that had sought refuge inside the castle, perhaps due to the memory of his own humble beginnings. Whatever the case, Hideyoshi let them go unharmed and bade them return to their fields, albeit not without confiscating their weapons first. The fall of Ota concluded Toyotomi's conquest of Ki. While some settlements continued to resist, none could threaten his control of the province. Hideyoshi was now free to turn his attention against his second target, which conveniently lay just across the sea, the island of Shikoku.
Wow.
The smallest of the main Japanese islands, Shikoku was at that time ruled primarily by Chosokabe Motochika, though areas that defied his authority existed as well. Hideyoshi was not the first to have contemplated invading the island. 3 years prior, his then overlord, Oda Nobunaga, had made preparations and had amassed an army of 14,000 men under his son Nobutaka for that purpose. However, Nobunaga's untimely end forestalled the invasion plans. Now it was Hideyoshi's time to try. By June of the same year, the Toyotomi forces were ready to invade the island and exact revenge from Motochika, who in the previous year had made the mistake of siding with Tokugawa Ieyasu. For the first time, Hideyoshi did not lead his troops personally, but instead delegated the task to his subordinate generals. He would join the scene in the last moments to claim the glory. Just as the invading force was making preparations for a medieval-style D-Day, so was Chosokabe Motochika preparing to defend his territory, which he had painstakingly conquered over 25 years. He gathered a force of roughly 40,000 men, which he deployed in various strategic points across the island, where they repaired old castles and constructed new defenses. The majority of his troops and best commanders were stationed in Awa province, correctly predicting the main invasion's route. Indeed, in mid-June, 60,000 men under Toyotomi Hidenaga and Toyotomi Hidetsugu crossed over from Awaji Island and into Awa. However, Hideyoshi had planned a three-pronged invasion, with another group of roughly 23,000 men sailing from Bizen and landing at Sanuki, and a third division of more than 30,000 soldiers crossing from Aki to Iyo province. Landing at Yashina in Sanuki province, the smaller of the three regiments swiftly captured Kyoka, Kosai and Murei castles and prepared to siege Ueda. However, upon witnessing the fortress's strong defenses and fearing an encirclement from a Chosokabe relief force, they decided to lift the siege and, heeding Kuroda Kanbei's advice, made their way towards Awa to link up with the main force. Perhaps Kanbei had, through spies or scouts, possessed knowledge of Motochika's plans. Alternatively, it is possible that being the great strategist that he was, he had correctly assessed the situation, for the Chosokabe daimyo had indeed placed a force nearby to ambush the would-be besiegers. After merging together, the two detachments moved to besiege Kizu Castle, which fell into their hands after just 8 days. Unobstructed, Hideyoshi's troops captured Ushiki and Kiyama castles without a fight, and from then on, Hidenaga proceeded to siege Ichinomiya, while Hidetsugu moved to Iwakura, accompanied by Kuroda Kanbei. A few days later, following an intense bombardment, Hideyoshi's banners flew over the castle. Its surrender also led to the abandonment of the nearby Waki Castle, and towards late July, the fall of Ichinomiya concluded Hideyoshi's conquest of Awa. At the same time, the 3rd Regiment, which consisted mostly of Mori troops and led by Kobayakawa Takakage and Kikawa Motoharu, had sailed from Aki and landed at Iyo. Wasting no time, they moved against Takao and Kaneko castles, the seats of the Ishikawa and Kaneko families respectively. The head of the latter, Kaneko Motoye, led the overall military command of the area, and was determined to put up fierce resistance to honor his service to Motochika, despite his clan being close to the Mori thanks to their intermediates in Shikoku, the Kono clan. Leaving the defense of Kaneko to his younger brother, coincidentally also named Motoharu, he barricaded his forces in Takao. After a fierce fight, Kaneko fell, and Takakage surrounded Takao with his men on the 12th of July, beginning their bloody assaults on the castle walls. 5 days later, with half of the fortress already destroyed and with no hope of achieving victory, Motoye set fire to the castle and, with his remaining 800 men, sallied out to meet a heroic death. Following the capture of Takao, the Mori troops continued the conquest of Iyo, which wasn't concluded until late August. Yet Motochika had already surrendered. Following the decisive blow that was the fall of Ichinomiya Castle, the head of the Chosokabe clan officially surrendered to Hideyoshi on the 6th of August.
Yeah, he got jumped on all fronts, and I was thinking, like, they were making such great headway, I didn't see how... Like, he tried to prepare for sure, but... Yeah, getting jumped on all fronts is just too much. So, I guess rather as well just, well, submit, you know... Hideyoshi at least seems to be chill if people submit right away. So, I guess probably the best move he could have made, because I was being like, how's he gonna fight these guys off? He's like losing so much territory off the bat, you know?
Conquest of Shikoku, something that had taken Motochika a lifetime to accomplish, had been achieved by Hideyoshi in 1 month.
Oh, that's sad. That's sad. This dude spent over 2 decades trying his hardest to get all of this. And then just like Hideyoshi, bro. But I guess that goes to show you that the skill, huh? I mean, the difference. But that's actually really sad. I feel kind of bad for the guy to achieve all this and then just to kind of end up being under the thumb of someone else. It actually is super tragic. But again, Hideyoshi is just that guy.
The Toyotomi daimyo was magnanimous in his victory, and while he naturally stripped away most of Motochika's conquests to reward his loyal vassals, he allowed the Chosokabe to retain control of Tosa province. That same month, Hideyoshi officially became the most powerful man in the land, as he was given the title of Kanpaku, chief advisor and regent to the emperor, a title that for centuries was monopolized by the Fujiwara clan and their cadet branches. In fact, after Hideyoshi's successor, Hidetsugu, the title returned to Fujiwara hands until its abolishment during the Meiji Restoration, making the two the only non-Fujiwaras to have held the office.
And I'm gonna end the episode right here, guys. But again, Hideyoshi, bro, on a roll. No one can stop him. He's literally unstoppable. And yeah.